think I made my mistake when I tried to tell you about Skipper. That's where I made my
Maggie.
I never should have confessed.
Maggie, now you shut up about Skipper. I mean it. You gotta shut up about Skipper.
The laws of silence won't work about that. Not about Skipper and us. It's like locking the door on a fire in hopes of forgetting the house is...
Hey, everybody!
Burning. But not looking at a fire doesn't put it out. This time, I'm gonna finish. That night in the hotel room, Skipper and
I don't want to hear about it.
Why won't you face the truth just once? About Skipper, about me, about yourself.
Hey, everybody!
Brick, honey.
Hey, you gonna bring that party up here or not?
Kit and caboodle, son.
That won't do any good.
Maggie,
I'm gonna say this, and I don't care if it's in front of them.
Maggie. Do you want me to hit you with this crutch?
You're still blaming me for Skipper's
Now,
death?
don't you know that I could kill you with this crutch?
Good Lord, man, do you think I'd care if you
Skipper
did?
and I had a friendship. Now, why won't you let it alone?
It's got to be told.
But I don't want to hear it.
It's got to be told, and you never let me tell it. I love you, and that's worth fighting for. Not Skipper. Skipper was no good.
Maggie.
Maybe I'm no good either. Nobody's good. But Brick, Skipper is dead. And I'm alive.
Maggie.
Maggie the cat is alive. I'm alive. Why are you afraid of the truth?
Truth?
Little girl, somebody ought to teach you to knock before you open a door. Otherwise, people might think that you're lacking in good breeding.
Yeah. What's Uncle Brick doing on the floor?
I tried to kill your Aunt Maggie.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yes.
Very exciting. We are deep in the throes of Pride, month and a half. Actually, I figured out this year. I didn't figure it out. I saw it. It was, usually we do it the first week of July here in San Diego, but this year it's July 15th. So it's like super extra long Pride for us. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal here.
Would have a real hard time in San Diego.
Yeah, we might be. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out this year.
A thing that has existed all of our lives, by the way.
Oh, I know. Oh, no kidding. But because it's Pride Month, we are looking at books and movies from LGBTQIA creators. And we are going to be talking about a classic. I cannot believe we have never talked about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof before, but it is true. We have not.
We have not.
If you are new and you saw the title of this podcast and you were like, I thought that was a play. It is a play, although I will say is a play that was developed from a short story. When the pandemic started, we made a commitment to do a brand new episode every single week. Here we are 3 years later, still churning them out. But in order to do that, we had to be able to expand what we mean by the word book. So we're not always doing the Joy Luck Club or we can't do Les Miserables in a week. Anything that could also be a doorstop, we really can't consider, but we will consider really any movie that's been adapted from any kind of literary source, whether it is a play or a magazine article or a short story or novella, a song, a poem. As long as it is a literary source, we will consider it. So we are constantly looking for suggestions. We've gotten some really great ones from our listenership. And there's a few places where you can meet other listeners. If you are new, you can interact with us on the internet.
I guess the place we're most interactive is on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page and all the episodes are posted there first, but we're really much more interactive in our Facebook group. It's a group that's private. You have to ask to join, but we really do only talk about books and movies there, lots of classic movie stuff. And then we have a couple of pins posted at the top. One is for the episodes we've done so far, which Thaddeus put together, thank God. And then we have one that for all the suggestions people have. And it's fine to like pin a suggestion or to go back to it. We also ask that the movie has to be on a major streaming app. It can't be a DVD that we have to buy because it'll just never happen. You can also reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram. Both of those places we're at Book versus and Movie. We post more clips and images there. And then we just have an old-timey email, Book versus Movie Podcast. Spell that all out at gmail.com. You can send us your suggestions. You can also ask for stickers. We have a stack of stickers here, so if you'd like one, just send me your address. And wherever you are in the place of the earth, one of us will send out those stickers to you.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Yes, we have Patreon. We've been doing the show for 10 years now. And we have just literally hundreds of episodes up there from our very early stuff, which is actually free if you want to really scroll along. But we've decided to take everything from 2020 and then previous to that is up on that Facebook wall, on the, Patreon wall. So there's over 130 episodes that are free right now. But we recently put up Harold and Maude, His Girl Friday, Little Women, The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, The Perfect Storm is coming up, Stand By Me, The Phantom of the Opera, Stepford Wives, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Turn of the Screw. Yes, we've done so many shows. And they are all now on Patreon or will soon be, but they are no longer available in the main feed. And this just helps us get books and movies to actually talk about, but also the hosting costs of putting the show together, which we're thrilled to do. It's just the two of us. We're not part of a big network, and that's how we like it anyway.
Fortunately, Thaddeus, one of our listeners, put together a comprehensive list.
Yes,
of all of our. Sometimes I forget. Somebody recently in the group suggested Love Story, and I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." Oh, wait a minute. And I literally had to check his list to remind myself if we had done it or not.
I have to go to the Dropbox folder on my phone.
It's been many years.
Yes, and by many, maybe even 3. Like because of COVID is just. Its own thing, yeah.
Seriously. So we have talked about Tennessee Williams before when we talked about Streetcar. I don't remember if that was last year. It was recently. Mm-hmm. But for those who are new, maybe you're not familiar with Tennessee Williams. He is not, well, we should just say that during, I would say right after World War II, there was like a real, I think part of it being the WPA and all of that, there was an amazing kind of renaissance in American theater, and it really developed, I think, partly because of the war and the pervasiveness of American culture. It really developed a tremendous kind of renaissance right after World War II, and really experimenting with the form and with American stories in a way that was really unusual for the time, but also kind of went away it took a long time for us to get back around to the diversity of stories, the themes that were being explored. It was really a fascinating time, and one of the most hailed, when we think of playwrights at the time, you think of like Eugene O'Neill, you think of like Arthur Miller, but Tennessee Williams was arguably one of maybe the most successful, the most well-known of this kind of echelon of American playwrights that were working at that time. And he was one of these guys who seemed to have hit after hit after hit. He was super prolific. So not everything was a hit. There's a lot of stuff that we haven't heard of that, flopped. But he did, like when you look at his body of work, whoa,
yeah,
there's some really serious hits in there.
We should also mention it was for veterans after World War II. Mm-hmm. They had you could go to any school you wanted. You had a budget of funds that were given to you. And so many of them went into acting school. And so the acting becomes very different. These are all men or people who are family members of men and women who served, who learned about these new experiences that they had overseas. And that completely was made a difference in the type of acting people did in the late 40s into the 50s. There's this big swing into more naturalism and realism. And it's a very interesting time. But should I just begin with our bio of, once again, this is someone people spend their entire careers.
Seriously, we're not drama scholars.
or
film scholars, even.
Right, fine arts scholars, yes.
Lay people, yeah. Not devoting, we voted a week of research.
Right. So Tennessee, his name was Thomas Lanier Williams. He was born 1911 in Columbus, Mississippi. He grew up in a very tough household. His dad was a door-to-door salesman. When Tennessee was either 5 or 6, he developed diphtheria and was sick for a year. And his mother like really coddled him and because he was home with her all the time. She had 2 other siblings. He had a younger sibling. Her name is Rachel, I believe. Her name is Laura, basically, in the Glass Menagerie. But he had a younger sister, Rose, and she had mental health issues, very severe mental health issues. He had an older brother who was a little bit more, I guess, your ideal at the time of the macho son. The father was very rough and an alcoholic. He abused Tennessee. He was very abusive towards his wife. They moved a lot. He was incredibly shy and awkward, and he kind of found himself with writing. That was the one thing that helped him express himself, because he was very tortured by a lot of different feelings, and not the least of which being his sexuality, which some people say like was so traumatic for him, and other people say, nah, it wasn't, that wasn't it. It was more of just how people reacted to him at the time. Some of his plays, The Glass Menagerie, Streetcar Named Desire, Cat in a Hot Tin Rib, Sweet Bird of Youth, The Night of the Iguana. He's won the Pulitzer Prize. He's in the American Theater Hall of Fame. If you go to his Wikipedia page, just the number of things that he's written is unbelievable. And the things that he went back, the Rose Tattoo and Camino Royale, there's just so many. And the things that he went back to rewrite because he had to make changes, like he did with this particular work that we're talking about today. He lived to be 71. He died by accidental drug overdose. And he left his money to his brother and his sister. His sister was in a hospital in northern, Westchester area of New York. It was worth about $7 million. She had to get a lobotomy. They gave her a lobotomy in the 40s. So he left this money for her, but he also left money to the school that he graduated from, University of Iowa. And he died in 1983 at the age of 71. And though he wanted to be buried at sea and made very specific, instructions for this, his brother buried him in the Calvary Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. And that's our person today. He based, like Margos said, he based it on 2 short stories, and they were called it was a short story called The 3 Players of a Summer Game, and it had some
Brick
of our
and Maggie.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you read it?
No, I didn't. Did you?
Yeah, I read it. It's very good.
Okay.
It's
good.
a really good short story. It's the very different. It's different than Streetcar. But we have Brick and Maggie. Brick is in the story, the original story. 3 Players of a Summer Game? You said is
yes.
Is that what it's called? So the 3 players in the title are Brick, who is in this story he owns the plantation already. He owns the plantation. He is an alcoholic. He is married to Maggie. He's such an alcoholic that she has taken power of attorney, and so she is really running things. But the way that Brick and Maggie are described in this story is almost exactly as the way they're described in the play. So Brick was an athlete. He's still very good looking, even though he's an alcoholic and has been for some time. But in the story, their family doctor. So Brick's family is not in this story apart from Maggie at all. They don't have any kids, but they are married. And in the story, the family doctor whose name is escaping me. It's not that important, but the family doctor who has been kind of looking after Brick through his alcoholism and various little injuries that he's incurred as a result of it. The doctor dies suddenly of, it seems like a brain tumor or an aneurysm, or something like that.
Wow.
He dies very well. Suddenly he goes from being perfectly normal doctor to he's speaking nonsense. Like he thinks he's like somebody's having a stroke almost kind of thing. And they're trying to figure out what's wrong with him. And anyway, it's very quick that he dies. And Brick, I think, is there when the doctor dies, I believe. And he is in shock, as is the doctor's now widow, in shock. And they develop a relationship together. So the doctor's widow becomes Brick's mistress. And the three people playing the summer game are Brick and the mistress, the doctor's widow, and the doctor's little girl that he's left behind as well. And the little girl in the story, Tennessee Williams is telling the story as though it's a memory of his childhood. I think he's staying with a relative, and the widow and the daughter live next door, and he kind of plays with the daughter from time to time. And so he's been, over the course of the summer, he's been observing this comings and goings. And so he observes the ambulance coming to take the doctor away. He observes Brick coming over every now and again. And Brick will come over and plays croquet. That's the summer game. He plays croquet with the widow and the daughter. And they're playing croquet. And then it becomes really evident to everybody that these two are having an affair. And meanwhile, Maggie is running everything. She's the businesswoman running stuff around town. And Brick gets really drunk, and he pretends to be, I'm sorry. Through the course of the relationship that he's having with the widow of the doctor, he starts making improvements around her house, because the house is very run down and shabby. He has it painted. He has it fixed up. He has, he's starting to give her gifts and stuff like that. And everybody is seeing that the house is suddenly very nice, and that Brick is paying for everything, because Brick shows up and he's supervising the workers. So anyway, one afternoon, Brick is extremely drunk, and he's pretending to be playing football or running track, something like that. He's talking to imaginary people on the lawn of the widow's house, his mistress's house, and everybody is seeing what's going on. And he injures himself.
Oh my goodness.
And so similar to the start of the play, he injures himself. And so he now can't walk for a little while. And so he's home. He's home now with Maggie for a while. And that becomes the end of his relationship with his mistress. So the mistress and the daughter continue to set up the croquet game, expecting Mr. Brick to come. And the daughter, who's friends with little Tennessee Williams in the story, the daughter, and it's hot, it's summertime, right? The daughter starts saying to her mom, because everything happens outside, because it's so freaking hot that everybody lives their whole lives outside during these months, right? So the daughter says to her mom that it's overheard her say to the mom, Mommy, you know what I love? I love ice and sugar. And the mom's like, what? And she's like, yeah, I love ice and sugar. When Mr. Brick finishes his drinks, I like to have the ice and sugar that's at the bottom.
Oh,
and the mom is
no.
like, whoa, no, you're not doing that. And she's like, no, but it's good. And she's like, no, but there's liquor in that. And she's like, no, there's not any left. When Mr. Brick is done, there isn't any liquor left. But anyway, they're waiting for him to come, and they keep expecting him to come, and he doesn't show up. And the widow is becoming increasingly irritable and cranky. And then one day, I'll just spoiler alert. By the way, we spoil everything on this podcast. Spoiler alert. One day, a man in a truck pulls up to the house, and she thinks, oh, Brick has sent another repairman. And the guy gets out, and he's tacking a for sale sign in front of the house. And what has happened is Maggie has bought the house. and is selling it out from under Brick's mistress. And the end of the story is that then everybody in town sees Maggie then like for the rest of the year. So then eventually the daughter and the mistress have to go. They have to move away. And Maggie is seen driving Brick. So Brick can't drive because he's gotten too many DUIs, basically. And so Maggie has just, the rest of that summer, the rest of that year, everybody sees Maggie driving Brick's car around with Brick just drunk and rolling around in the back seat, basically. And that is, we're to deduce from that, like that's how their life is going to be now. Like he's just going to be drunk all the time and she's just going to be running everything. And
interesting.
That's the relationship that they're stuck in now. So it's nothing about, there are no gay characters in the original story, no themes like that of any kind. It is all just about heterosexual relationships and many of the same themes, but within a completely heterosexual milieu.
It's
so
interesting,
that story,
though.
Yeah, it was a really good.
Because,
obviously, the writing's very good. It was in the New Yorker,
right? Oh, I got to look that up. One of his first relationships with men. He actually did have some girlfriends. He was he said later on he was very slow when it came to romantic relationships. Like it was in his 20s before he started dating, and then first had sex. He first had sex with women, and then he met Kip Kiernan in Provincetown, who was this Canadian draft dodger who came to America to avoid the Canadian draft. And they met on Long Island and they fell in love. And Kip that wasn't his real name, but that's the name he went by. And they had this very intense, vacation relationship. And I've been to Provincetown. It's lovely. And I can imagine people falling in love there. He breaks up with him by saying, look, I have to marry a girl. I have to marry this woman. It's just the way it's going to be. And Tennessee was completely destroyed, but he let him go. And then that guy wound up dying either of a brain aneurysm or a brain tumor. And it was very young when it happened. And it was very sudden. So I wonder if that was a part of it.
It could be. And the thing, I think Tennessee Williams has a number of relationships and a number of long-term relationships, and they all seem to be quite turbulent, independent of the very real, conflict of that they are trying to just be themselves in a world where being themselves is completely illegal and vilified and so on. He also has a lot of relationships that are violent, where there's a lot of he drinks, and a lot of the same kind of turbulent problems that exist in any kind of relationship, with those kind of issues at play, let alone, like I said, the overlay of the fact that you're gay. But yeah, he's familiar, I guess, with these kinds of tropes and themes, and also his parents, but he's such a great, it sounds like he's starting to write from a very young age, and he's just one of these people we've talked about, like a Truman Capote, who has just that astute writer's eye and a devotion to the craft of writing. And so that everything that he produces, whether it's a hit or not, is, you can't say it's not well written.
Right. And he works very hard.
Yeah. This little story in the New Yorker, it's not a long story, but he tells such a complex, he paints such a complex picture of these different players in this relationship dynamic. I mean, it's very complicated, but he does it with this really, you're just there. He just just these little key phrases and turns of expressions that he uses, like the thing about the sugar and the ice, that really just give you as a reader, such a complete world that you're in.
I bet that kid took some great naps that her mother was grateful for. I'm sure, not even knowing.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
But this particular play, did you watch that Mike Wallace interview that he did?
No, I watched
it's really good. I'll put it in the Facebook group. It sounds like somebody like they've remastered it with AI or something because it sounds a little weird, but it's somewhat restored. But there's it's an interview that he's done, and it's right when Streetcar the movie is. I'm not Streetcar. I'm sorry. This movie. What's this movie?
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I'm stuck between the two other movies. So sorry. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the movie, is just about to come out, I think. And so it had already been a hit on stage. The Rose Tattoo he just finished a run of the Rose Tattoo. And he was embarking on a run of something that at the time was called Garden District or The Garden District, something like that. And Garden District was, I think, if I understand correctly, 2 one-act plays, one of which was Suddenly Last Summer, which is eventually developed also into a movie, also with Elizabeth Taylor.
And it's bananas.
And I love that movie.
Yeah.
But so so anyway, what I'm saying is this is at a point where Tennessee Williams is extremely successful. He's had a couple of flops, but flops by Tennessee Williams standards, like hits for anybody else, but a flop for him. And he also has, firmly established his voice in the American theater. He's had several works where he's explored things like homosexuality and whatnot. And so Mike Wallace is asking him about it. And it's a really frank conversation about homosexuality, which I'm trying to remember how he describes it. I don't think he uses the word perversion, although that was the word that was used very much at the time. It was described as an anomaly, as an illness sometimes, We've talked about it before. In a number of works, but it is a really interesting conversation that he's having with Tennessee Williams. And Tennessee Williams I don't know if he's completely sober, but he is answering. It seems to be rather honestly about like why he explores what he explores in his work, why it's interesting to him. Mike Wallace asks him, like, why are you so obsessed with death? Why is death such a big theme in all of your works? Which it kind of is. Basically, like, why is your work such a bummer kind of thing? And Tennessee Williams was like, well, I think I have a lot of humor in my work, which he does. I mean, he has a lot of humor. Yeah. There's a lot of laugh moments, especially in this script. And, he's basically like, well, death is a thing that everybody deals with. Like, why wouldn't I talk about it kind of thing? The other element of that interview that is hilarious is Mike Wallace at several points in the interview turns to the camera and does a commercial for Parliament cigarettes. He like takes a long drag on the cigarette and is like, oh yeah. That smooth taste of a Parliament, like journalists do. Like
they do. We talked about Mike Wallace when we talked about, what was the movie we did? It was Russell Crowe and The Insider, right? Was that
The Insider, yes.
Which is based on a magazine article, by the way. But Mike Wallace was somebody that like, I'm a journalist and blah, 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 blah. And he started as a game show host. And if you see his interviews with women, sometimes they're just, I mean, he's just, he's a piece of work.
He's a man of his time.
Very much a man of his time at the time. Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams were frenemies. They were
frenemies, I think is a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yes. They were very competitive with one another. Well, I have a show on Broadway. Well, I have a show down the street from you, and it's got the New York Times review. Well, I got this, I'm going to do this interview on television. Well, I'm going to do that.
It reminds me, remember when we talked about Elton John's bio and the movie, and how Elton John and Rod Stewart have that competitive relationship, and they waste no opportunity to rag the other one about.
Yes, and Freddie Mercury was also in that group.
So sorry about your last album.
Yes, exactly. Mine had 3 hits on it, and my video won the Video Music Award. What does yours do? Like it's
very that.
Which I guess is it's fun to have competition. It's fun to have like work, be around people who inspire you and make you work harder and make you want to do your best work. We should go into this this play, which he's rewriting it. He approaches.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we get into that part of it, because this is something like he revisited and added and revisited and subtracted. And I feel like the script that I read for this week was a very late version that definitely had the revisions. I was going to ask you, like, I don't know that I've ever read the original, like as it was originally produced.
There's so he wanted Elia Kazan to direct it because that's where they have success together. And Kazan had his choice of projects at the time. And he was very complicated man. We've talked about him a few times, but he was, I have his book on directing. Like I'm constantly referring to it because he was brilliant. He knew how to take material and shape it. He loved to work with actors. He was a good collaborator with other people. And he took this project and the story in the original form was much more like Maggie the Cat. And I sent you the clip from 1976, Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood.
I remember watching. Was it on television? Because I remember seeing it in the 70s.
It's and it was funny because I said to her, it's like bad captioning. There's a point where Robert Wagner says, "Do you want to be a lone maggot?" So if you were saying Maggot the Cat, so I have to not say Maggot the Cat. It's Maggie the Cat. Maggie in the short story, as you're telling me, very feisty and kind of mean. The Maggie here, and I was just reading about Kazan, he said she needs to be more likable. We need to root for her more. We need to see her more as somebody who should be in charge, and people should look at her and like put her in charge versus she comes in charge, which makes sense to me.
It does make sense, and that is not really how she's written. And you can read it in the script very much like the Maggie in the story, who is just like a machine who is just taking care of all the business. Yeah, I can see that.
There's a lot to be said, and Williams lived many lives in his lifetime. There's some stuff here that just like it shocks me to my core. Seriously, how his writing is so beautiful and the things his characters say, so floral and so over the top, and you can make fun of it like with your, but she says things like, she tells Brick, I was born poor. I had to have, everything was a hand-me-down. Mm-hmm. You can be young and poor. You cannot be old and poor. And that is a truth like beyond truths. Like that is, and she knows like, so Brick is Paul in the story. It's Ben Gazzara. I'm sorry, in the original play, and I have a clip that I just posted.
Did you see that amazing video of? He is just electric.
The opening night of Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, seated in front, opening night, is Tennessee Williams, Kazan, Lee Strasberg, Cheryl Crawford, and I don't know whom. I was so nervous. I said, Jesus, I better be good. Well, we blew them away. We got such a reaction. There was a big, fancy party, the fanciest thing I've ever been invited to. And at my table, Tennessee's here, Kazan is here. I'll never forget the newspapers came. The New York Times appeared. And Kazan opened it up. And what a review. What a review.
I'm not giving you any excuse to divorce me for being unfaithful or anything else.
Maggie, I wouldn't divorce you for being unfaithful or anything else. Don't you know that? Why, hell, I'd be so relieved to know you found yourself a lover.
Well, I'm taking no chances. No. I'd rather stay on this hot tin roof.
Maggie, a hot tin roof's an uncomfortable place to stay on.
Yeah. But I can stay on it just as long as I have to.
You could leave me, Maggie.
There's no reason why we can't have a child whenever we want one. Are you listening? Are you listening to me?
Yes, I hear you, Maggie. But how in hell on earth do you expect to have a child by a man that can't stand you?
What a review we all got. Jesus Christ. And what Brooks Atkinson said about me, you couldn't buy it. Burl Ives cried. He had tears in his eyes. So did Barbara Bel Geddes. And I think we all cried.
I was
Was he good in that
on
role?
another show I work on called Dorking Out. We talked about Roadhouse, and he was the thug, the heavy in Roadhouse. So
That's right.
So I just have him on my brain.
Roadhouse.
Yes, Roadhouse, where he fights with a spear in the end with Patrick Swayze. It's fabulous. But so here he was a serious stage actor, very handsome. It's 1954, and he and Barbara Bel Geddes, I guess they did one production where they created it for news crews, and it's the only. We don't have any. Which is what is shocking and a terrible thing is we don't have any films of these plays from the 40s, 50s, 60s. They didn't take the time to do it. They didn't have the money.
They did do them. Yeah, they didn't have the money. It wasn't something that people thought was worth preserving on film because I think it was partly too that, as we said, like the theater was, the American theater at this point is a highly respected. I mean, it is the highest of high culture, respected all over the world. And so to film it like you would a movie or a TV show is sort of like cheapening it. And so, yeah. And so I can see why like they didn't necessarily think, oh, we must make sure to preserve this on film or kinetoscope or whatever. Why would you do that? You know? And there are sometimes radio adaptations where they bring in the original, and we have radio, which is something at least, but in this terrible quality though, you know, kinetoscope or whatever it was. But like, nevertheless, Ben Gazzara is just, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be in the theater. It is so, just in this dumb, terrible video clip, it is so powerful. It's just chilling. It's amazing.
He's with Barbara Bel Geddes, who I will always be Miss Ellie from Dallas for me.
And the one from Vertigo.
And Vertigo, of course.
The girlfriend in Vertigo.
So she's Maggie the cat. So they have this just one very quick scene. And like I said, I posted in the Facebook group and I posted it Instagram and TikTok. And but Maggie she's a woman that's in her early 30s. She's married to Brick. Brick is around the same age as she is. He was a hero. His dad was wealthy. He's never had to want anything. He's good looking. He has a ton of friends. Everything kind of comes easily for him. He has an older brother with the unfortunate nickname, of Gooper or Brother Man. These names, this is also Tennessee Williams. He loves a fun name.
He loves a good Southern nickname.
He revels in that stuff. So Maggie and Brick, they're at the house of Big Daddy, so Brick's father. And Brick's father's 65, and he's having his 65th birthday. Big Goop, brother man and sister woman, May, his wife, are with their 5 kids with the 6th one on the way. Hot afternoon in the Delta, which is just broiling. And Big Daddy is told by his doctor, like, oh, you just have a spastic cold. He hasn't been feeling well, and they're all concerned about him. And it's funny because it's Burl Ives, who's a very burly man. Like, you wouldn't look at him and think anything's wrong.
He was the original Big Daddy.
Yeah.
You know the thing about Burl Ives, just a little sidebar about Burl Ives. Of course, you and I remember him from the Christmas Silver and Gold. And yes, we know him as
Holly
the
Jolly
singing
Christmas.
Holly Jolly Christmas singing animated snowman. He was somebody who was very well known as a folk singer. He is somebody like he lived kind of a long time, and a big guy his whole life. He was never not a big guy.
Right.
Very big, imposing figure who sang like fun little folk songs. And he was a contemporary and friend, and I think often collaborator with people like Pete Seeger. But like Elia Kazan and some others, during the communist scare, Burl Ives was one of the people who, quote unquote, named names, went before the committee. And, it's a complicated issue because these people were really under threat. On a lot of levels, and very often the argument is that when they did name names, they were naming names that were already known. You know, they were just, but
Yeah.
So anyway, it caused a rift between himself, and it cost him a lot of his like folk singer cred for a long time. But then eventually he pretty much regained it. I mean, he really he was somebody who was extremely progressive and even radical, some would say, in his politics. And but he really, you know, he really took a big hit. Both by coming under scrutiny of the House Un-American Activities, and then by speaking before them. So what I'm saying is, at this time when he's making this play, like he's a controversial choice, let's say, for this role. Certainly for the movie, if not for the stage version as well. But who else would you ever get to play this role? Orson Welles is the only other person I can think of.
At
He's
the time,
that plays that role in the what is it, the Long Hot Summer?
Yes.
Right. But he's so imposing, and he is Big Daddy. Like, what else would you call him?
Right. He's big in every sense. He's just a large man. He also has just a big personality, and he just takes over a room. You could say he maybe sucks the oxygen out of a room. He like has that much power about him. But he comes back from the doctors and he's told, you have a spastic colon. You're fine. Just, you know, watch the greasy foods or whatever they're telling him to. So he comes home all like the cock of the walk, like, I'm fine. I just have a spastic colon.
Around here.
Yeah. So guess what? So I'm not going to let you, mother. I'm not going to let you walk. You know, he yells at his wife. He yells at the grandchildren.
Yells at everybody.
He yells at everybody. The only one he doesn't yell at is Maggie, because he's hot for Maggie, because Maggie's a babe. And Maggie really wants to please him because Maggie also wants the money. She's been poor her whole life. This is her shot. This is her chance. Back then, women couldn't get credit cards. Women couldn't.
Yeah. I feel like this is a theme we don't talk about very much in this play because there's so many other like really big themes going on. All the family dynamic, of course, the homosexual theme that's going on, the homosexual subplot that's going on, but also like there's this whole something I learned, and I may have brought this up before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but you know, I was an interior designer for like 20 years, and I worked with, or arguably for people who were stratospherically wealthy, people like Big Daddy. I've known a few of them over my life, and I've also known a lot of people like Maggie and a lot of people like the brother man and sister woman. I always want to call her sister wife.
Yes, I know nowadays.
Woman. But something I observed early on was that when you marry for money, you get money. You don't really get much else.
You don't get respect.
You're not good. You don't get respect. You don't get love. You don't get culture or class necessarily. You get money. And so, you know, Maggie has, I always feel like Maggie is somebody who married for money. Does she really love Brick? I'm not really sure. She married for money, but she was only expecting to get money. But now that is under threat. So she's going to fight like a cat on a hot tin roof to get we had an agreement. I was going to get this one thing, and your behavior is keeping me from getting the one thing that we agreed on. So the gloves are off. Let's go.
Yeah.
And the same thing with what do you call the brother Cooper and what's May Cooper and May, the sister, the in-laws. Same thing. You know, she has married. They have lived their whole lives in pursuit of money. They have lived their whole lives with the idea that he's going to take the job that Big Daddy wants. They're going to have the number of kids that Big Daddy wants. They're going to be married for the length of time that Big Daddy wants. And it's all in service of getting that money. Nobody respects them. Nobody even likes them. Nobody likes the kids. You know,
the kids are annoying, by the way.
Kids are really super. They're written annoying, which is
is great. The no neck monsters that she calls them.
So that's a theme I feel like we don't talk about very much with this piece, although it is a big theme, I think. But because because there are so many amazing, awesome themes in this piece.
There's
that,
symbolism.
Take the stage.
The
symbolism when his crutch breaks.
The animals mentioned and all this stuff is symbolism.
Yes.
But I mean, once again, I wanted just to say, like, look, she grew up poor, but she also had family that had money at one time.
Yes.
And she makes a point of saying, we gave up the slaves at certain time before everybody else.
She does.
Trying to bring up her bona fides, like they're amazing people, even though they're surrounded by servants. And what was the past for those servants? But her currency is it's her youth and her beauty and her sex appeal. Like, those are the things that she has going for her. It's a finite thing. And she's like, she nailed the guys she wanted. She happens to be very attracted to him. And she likes the life that he could give her. So she's fighting for that. I think she loves him as well as she can love anybody.
I think true. Yeah. As much as she can love anybody.
Yeah. You know, but this is the situation.
But she's not, I was going to say, she's not longing for a child because she wants somebody to love.
Oh, no.
She's longing for the stability, the financial stability that a child will get her.
It's just the means to the end.
Yeah.
If they never had kids, she'd be fine, I'm sure. Because they have all those other kids that could be aunts and uncles too. But that's not how Big Daddy wants it. Big Daddy wants a grandson. I'm sure. It was a granddaughter maybe, but definitely wants a grandson. Brick,
in the play, it specifically says a grandson.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the South.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, that's how you pass along your wealth.
So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know, like, there's a lot of differences between the play and the movie. And we've talked about this before, that for decades, you could get away with doing things and talking about things on stage that you could never, ever, ever put on celluloid. So that alone means that we have to do a lot of rewriting and a lot of hinting at in the movie versus the play. But I also don't know, like, what if some of these different things were added later? I don't know.
The thing was, he said, Elia Kazan said, we need to make her nicer. And we need to have Big Daddy come back in the third act, because he used to be dropped off in the second act when he finds out he does have, spoiler, he does have cancer. He doesn't know this. They're all telling him he doesn't. And that's why they're all fighting so hard on his birthday to get his attention, because they don't know how much longer he's going to be coherent. They bring that in there. The whole relationship, and this is like the crux of things, and this is another big spoiler, but that Brick's best friend was Skipper. They were football buddies, and they could have graduated from college, gotten married, and been in business, whatever, but they were both they love football so much, they started their own minor league team, and they started touring with that. But then they were getting beaten everywhere they went. They were losing money, and Skipper and Maggie's feeling like left out of this relationship, because it's all Skipper and Brick. They're like frickin' frack. They're attached at the hip. He doesn't. Skipper and Maggie at one point sleep with each other. They have sex. And she explains, look, we both just wanted your attention. We both kind of wanted you, but he was drunk. He's starting to drink heavily. And so Skipper, she basically convinces Skipper that he's in love with Brick and he should tell him. And she's thinking if he does, Brick will freak out and cut off the relationship. And then
Skipper will finally be out of our lives.
Right.
Yeah.
She doesn't count on the fact that Brick calls him, tells him, and Skipper calls him, tells Brick, and then Brick kind of is like, ugh, I don't know how to handle this. Maybe you're drunk. I don't know. And Skipper dies by suicide. And so this sends Brick into a huge depression, because he's like, on the one hand, he's just like, this was my best friend. And
he feels responsible.
He feels responsible, but he also realizes, like, I really loved this person. What does that mean about me? Tennessee Williams himself, by the way, I've read 3 different things. And he says something different every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes he says Brick is bisexual. Sometimes he says Rick is definitely heterosexual. Sometimes he says Rick was homosexual, but just in this one occasion. It's interesting, and also because when he starts to talk about it with his father is like, well, what was it? Because his father's being very open.
Okay,
like,
let's talk about this. So in the play, And by the way, I think you could play, certainly Brick could be played in any one of those avenues, right?
Yeah.
It could, and
But
it would
who
work.
knows?
In the play, at least in the version that you and I read, Big Daddy is at no point is Big Daddy like, well, no son of mine's going to be a queer, da, da, da. And they use words like queer in the script. Big Daddy's like super
Okay.
super there for Brick and just reach and like, listen, I'm here for you. Just, you know, you don't have to go through this by yourself. And, you know, let me help you, and not let me help you not be gay. Let me help you accept yourself. Let me help you love yourself for who you are. I mean, it's a very, very different kind of dynamic. And this is a massive difference between the book and the movie the play and the movie. And again, they could never have written it like this for the film. So I totally get it. And I think the way they've handled it in the film is good, very good and effective, and accomplishes a lot of the same thing. But in the movie, if you all are familiar with this amazing movie, there's this beautiful scene where Brick and Burl Ives and oh my gosh, by the way, how funny was that explaining Cat on a Hot Tin Roof for Northerners video?
You should post on the Facebook group, did you?
Oh, we've got to. It made me laugh out loud so hard I had to go back and watch it again. So funny. But anyway, Brick and Big Daddy are down in the basement. Big Daddy at this point knows that he's got cancer and that he's dying. They have this massive fight. They're shaking this whole plantation to the core. And Big Daddy starts talking about his own father, who in this version, his own father was a vagrant, this tramp that took him around everywhere. Right. And he really loved his father more than he's ever loved anybody else in his life. And his father had absolutely nothing. And he's made his life all about possessions. The play is totally different.
Yeah.
In the play, Big Daddy is the one who is the hobo and the tramp, and he's got nobody, and he is starving basically. And super young man, he's starving. He's hopping trains to go from place to place just to try to get by and try to survive. And he lands on this very rundown plantation that is run by a gay couple. And the gay couple take him in, give him a job, put a roof over his head. They take care of him, and they love him. They are his family. That, we talk about chosen family. Mm-hmm. They are they have chosen each other. This is a chosen family here, and they help him advance. He starts as a field hand. I'm afraid the N-word is in the script.
Yes.
This is the time we're on a cotton plantation in Mississippi. So this kind of thing is going to come up. He, advances and advances and advances. And when this couple, and he talks about how these two men truly loved each other, and how one of them, the first one dies, the second one stops eating. And also dies. And he has nothing negative to say about the nature of their relationship or anything whatsoever. Nothing but absolute respect and love for these two men. And so he's trying to explain this to Brick. Like, listen, I get it. I understand how these kinds of relationships can happen, basically.
I believe also... I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also think in that, starting in the beginning of his story, if my memory's clear, I've read so many versions, I've seen so many versions, right? But he also at one point says, when I was a hobo, I was in a train car and you'd see two guys like laying next to each other. And
yes,
that's just what it was. Say that. And it's like,
and he does hint that he himself participated in something like that.
Yeah. Wherever you can find a warm body, sometimes it's like where you find comfort, and that's okay.
And also we learn that the bedroom that Brick and Maggie have been in, that was the couple's bedroom. That was these two men. That was their bedroom that they shared as a couple. And so the nature of that confrontation between Big Daddy and Brick is totally different. Big Daddy is extremely understanding. And they've written it as compact. They've written it as well as they can, close to this, as they could in the movie, I feel, and they did a good job. But he is very explicitly saying to his son in very concrete terms, listen, I totally get it. Let me be here for you. You know, I want to help you the way that this couple helped me and loved me like a son and took me in. Let me help you, my actual son.
That I love more than anybody else in my life, by the way,
yes.
including his wife and his grandchildren and his other son. Brick
in the movie, it's about how Big Daddy expresses his feelings through, you know, and it's not like that at all in the play. You never for a moment, you doubt that he loves his wife. You doubt that he loves his other son. You certainly doubt that he loves his grandkids, but
right.
You do not doubt that he loves Brick.
All right, folks. So I have a cat on my desk right now who's just touched the recorder and we stopped recording. So we're going to recap just a little bit at the end of the play and then we'll go right into this movie. You're a naughty, naughty cat. So the ending of this movie is, and we should mention also, by the way, I forgot to mention, is that the words disgusted and mendacity come in. These are very big themes. One means lying. One means, like, is he ashamed of himself? Is he ashamed of... Right. So at the very end of the movie, the play we're talking about, Big Daddy does find out that he is in fact dying. Big Mama has a flip out. Everybody's now trying to get in on him. And he resigns, basically, he's going to die peacefully, that he's going to leave everything to Brick and Maggie. And this is because Maggie tells him, just so you know, I'm pregnant. And she's wearing a silk gown and he touches her belly and he goes, oh, I could tell you really are. We're going to have a child. And then she takes Brick up to the bedroom and she throws the bottles away of all of his alcohol and basically says, I've been getting this is in the play. I've been taking my temperature. I know exactly what's going on here. I will tell you, this is the time to get pregnant. So this is when we're going to do it. And so then she says to Brick as she's like preparing, she says, look, just so you know, I really love you very, very much. I love you. And then Brick says to her, wouldn't that be funny if it were true? Which is a great last line.
I don't know why we had to cut that line from the movie, but
don't either.
It would have been great.
It really makes sense. It's the actual essential truth. All right, so we've talked about the play, the 1958 trailer. I was saying to you, now off the air, my dad was 18 when this movie came out, and it was like a big thrill for him to be able to see, because it was so risque for people.
To see Elizabeth Taylor in a tight slip.
I feel all the time like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Then jump off the roof, Maggie, jump off it.
The Tennessee Williams Pulitzer Prize-winning play unfolds with a shocking impact and uncompromising realism that makes its author the most talked-about dramatist of our day. Elizabeth Taylor is Maggie the cat, a girl too hungry for love to care how she goes about getting it.
I don't mind making a fool of myself over you.
Well, I mind. I feel embarrassed for you.
Feel embarrassed? But I can't live on this way.
Now, you agreed to accept that condition.
I know I did, but I can't.
Paul Newman vividly plays the emotionally tormented football hero.
But how in hell on earth do you imagine you're going to have a child by a man who cannot stand you?
Burl Ives is a sensation, portraying Big Daddy.
I'm going to pick me a choice woman, and I'm going to smother her in minks and choke her with diamonds.
Judith Anderson plays Big Mama.
When a marriage goes on the rocks are there, right there.
Jack Carson gives vigor and color to the role of Gooper, the older brother.
I don't give a damn whether Big Daddy likes me or don't like me. The point is, I'm not going to see this place run into the ground by a drunken ex-football hero.
You shut up about my husband. You shut up.
Madeline Sherwood portrays Sister Woman, the role she created in the play.
Oh.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is the passionate story of the conflict between people.
You and Skipper and millions like you living in a kid's world. Playing games, touchdowns, no worries, no responsibilities.
An intimate, revealing story of the conflict within people.
Maggie!
Maggie the cat is alive. I'm alive.
Hays Code. And the Hays Code said sex, you'd have to have like separate beds. You couldn't show this. You couldn't say that. So there's words that we can't say that are said in the play that they can't say here. The ending is a bit more upbeat, but we'll go into it. It's Richard Brooks is the director, and he co-wrote the adaptation with James Poe. But if you love the play and you love the language of it, they definitely use it all over in this movie.
I think they do. I think on the whole, it's a very good adaptation considering the constraints that they were under. You know, they do so much with subtext, and I think it's well done.
So we have Elizabeth Taylor, we have Paul Newman, Burl Ives, Jack Carson, who was in Mildred Pierce. He's so good.
And underrated, by the way, is Sister Woman, she was also in the original Broadway.
She was, as was Burl Ives, yes.
Madeline Sherwood, who is so... I've met this woman so many times in my life. We all know this woman. We've all met this woman at some point in our lives. I hope you don't have one in your family. But she's just like, she's just relentless. Brilliant. Everybody in this is so good, including the kids.
I have to say, I used to think, because Elizabeth Taylor in the 80s, she became more of like a person on television, like a media personality. And she was also an AIDS advocate. But we also had people who posted on our Facebook group. She had a very famous commercial for diamonds that had like the kind of light
These
that I have on me right now.
Yeah.
Like a very flattering light. It was great. It was a great commercial. And Paul Newman, please, this is peak Newman.
Oh, he's so hot in this movie. It was supposed to be James Dean, right?
Yes.
There was a lot of tragedy. So there was supposed to be James Dean, whom Elizabeth Taylor had been in Giant with. I love both of them. I love Giant. Again, a very long.
That's a really long. There's a few of the East of Eden. My God. Yeah.
But and I forget who they were looking at for Elizabeth Taylor's role. But in any case, her husband, Mike Todd, had just died when they're making this. And yet it is such a beautiful work of art, this movie.
I've been so disgustingly poor all my life. That's the truth, Brick.
Have you, Maggie?
You don't know what it's like to have to suck up to people you can't stand just because they have money. You don't know what it's like. Never having any clothes. That dress I married you in was a hand-me-down from a snotty rich cousin I hated. You can be young without money. But you can't be old without it. Where did I fail you? Where did I make my mistake? Make that your last drink until after the party, please, honey.
So we have Elizabeth Taylor, Paul Newman, and we meet them. Paul Newman has the crutch, and that's the whole thing with Brick is he's like constantly holding that crutch. He just broke we open with him breaking the ankle. We actually see that
we see that. I kind of like that choice.
Well, we expand beyond the bedroom. So in most productions, they take place in the bedroom only.
Yeah. In the play, if you're seeing it at the time when somebody would have been seeing it cold and not knowing anything about it, you'd be like, oh, wow, how did he break his leg? And it sort of unfolds as the play goes on. But I like that we get right away who this guy is. He's drunk. He's like clearly too old to be on the football track, trying to jump hurdles. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Right. Seriously, what are you doing, dude? He's drunk. That's what he's doing. And we realized that just recently his best friend, Skipper, died by suicide. He's moping around the house. It's hot. Everyone's miserable. Big Daddy's coming home for his 65th birthday. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't care. And they're all around this table having dinner, and these kids are just monsters. They're so
annoying.
They're so terrible.
That must have been so much fun for those kids
Oh,
to
I
like
bet
just
they
get to be
loved
as
it.
loud and obnoxious. And Jesus wants me for a son, babe.
It's exactly. They're saying, and so they throw at her nylons, some food at her nylons, so she's got to run upstairs. She's killing herself to make big. And it's funny also, they show a scene where Big Daddy arrives by private plane, and so Goober's family is all, they put a band together, they're singing, and he just walks out, rolls his eyes, and like walks right to Elizabeth Taylor. He's like, goodbye, she's driving me. So you get the idea that Maggie's very sexy, men are attracted to Maggie because it's Elizabeth Taylor, by the way, because she's so freaking beautiful. Like,
she is so smoking hot in every single frame of this movie.
These people,
it's a little distracting,
both of them, and when they're together, it's like, what is going on here? Like, why are they yelling at each other? You're both so beautiful. What is happening? But he's upset because he misses Skipper. He thinks all of this is trash. He doesn't care about it. He was a TV reporter, but he's drinking himself out of that job. She's telling him, look, they have 2,800 acres here that, this is our future. This is it. And he kind of like, okay, whatever. They do have the big conversation where he goes to the basement with Brick. And it, like Margaret was saying in the movie, it's a long scene, but it's really very, very moving the way he speaks with Brick. And they're trying to get around what the topic is, which is the homosexuality, which you can't mention. It's the 50s.
Suddenly noticed that you don't call me Big Daddy anymore. Now, if you needed a Big Daddy, why didn't you come to me? If you wanted somebody to lean on, why Skipper? Why not me? I'm your father. I'm Big Daddy me. Why didn't you come to your kinfolks, the people that love you?
You don't know what love means to you. It's just another four-letter word.
Oh, you got a mighty short memory. What was there that you wanted that I didn't buy for you?
You can't buy love. You bought yourself $1 million worth of junk. Look at it. Does it love you?
Who'd you think I bought it for? Me? It's yours. The place, the money, every rotten thing is yours.
I don't want things.
Well, we drew this up. I say we drew this up with the advice and assistance of the board of directors. Sit down.
Get out of my way.
It's not final.
I don't want to see it.
It's sort of a plan, a preliminary. Waste! Waste! Worthless! 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 Worthless!
And I like that, just like in the play, Big Daddy, who is macho, masculinity embodied, right?
Right.
He always, just like in the play, although he's being more oblique with his language, he is genuinely trying to help his son. He really is. He doesn't have the best tools.
No.
But he does care, and he is trying to help. He may not be able to help, but he wants to help, and he's really trying to listen. Like, just tell me. You can tell me. I'm not going to, I'm not going to do anything but try and help you. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the play, Big Daddy talks about taking the mother shopping and how she buys everything, and he just finds her completely annoying in every way. Here, everything she buys is in the basement, and we actually see it. So they talk about it in the play, but in the movie, we see it. So when Paul Newman is looking around, he sees money, but he's also like, it's wasted. Like, they don't care about it. They just bought the stuff just to buy it. And he's like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want this kind of life. In the meantime, Elizabeth Taylor does want that life. She wants that money, and she's like, we gotta, TikTok, we gotta show that we're gonna have a family together. They're not gonna leave us anything. In the meantime, they have a reverend come by and they have a doctor come by, and this is for the birthday celebration. And every once in a while, there's big clouds of thunder, and that, like, a big revelation happens and you hear the thunder. Oh my God. The Reverend's there and he's there to just kind of like smooth things along. But the doctor comes and tells the family, you know, I don't know how to tell you this, but this man, they all know he's dying, but Daddy doesn't think he's dying. Brick,
right,
by accident, tells his dad.
Then.
Yes.
I don't know why you didn't tell the protocol was not to tell the patient
right
what they had, but to tell the family so they can prepare. But so the idea is that we're going to keep the idea for like, I don't know, 20 minutes is that we're going to keep this from Big Daddy and, you know, try to take care of things and make things as nice for him as possible. But that all, you know, like all of this family's attempts to do anything as a family, it all just completely turns to poopy.
It turns totally to poopy. Yes, they don't completely falling apart. The Brick tells him, and then Brick realizes, oh no, I shouldn't have said that. And Big Daddy, who goes from walking around, swinging around like, that's right, I'm okay, just a spastic colon here, nothing to see, is like, oh, I'm dying. And he's truly like, well, what do I have to show for it? And his desperate thing is just to help his son, help Maggie. All are crumbling under this big pressure of everything that's happening. Gooper's trying to make his play for it. Gooper knows he's not loved. Gooper knows that, and that's why he became, by the way, he's a lawyer. He does really well for himself. He lives in Memphis or Nashville, but he did everything he can to get his father's attention. And Brick just literally gets drunk and falls all over the place, and his dad just cannot stop helping him. So I'm sure he feels a lot of pain from that and a lot of hurt. But he's also, Madeline Sherwood, my God, that hairdo that they have for her is so...
It's so unflattering. It is so
unflattering. It's just, but that's May. Like we're not supposed to feel sorry for her. We're supposed to just be annoyed by her because she's so chirpy and loud, and they're all trying to get the big secrets out, and they're all trying to discredit Brick. But in the end, he does really love him. Big Daddy, defends Brick, and then the very last scene of the movie is the compromise they make is that Elizabeth Taylor and Paul Newman sort of decide together, okay, we're going to have a baby. Because this is it'll stick it to those guys, and it'll also secure our future. It'll make Big Daddy happy, and maybe this will cure us. And so they make out, which is nice to watch,
which is a great reason to have a kid.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
To get a plantation and stick it to your relatives.
They want to make Maggie's lie a truth. That's what they're ending it with. It's fantastic.
It's so good.
It's so well done.
The soundtrack is so good. The storm and the music and the costumes are so awesome. Sister Wife's like hideous maternity dress and then the bed and that brass bed that only she sleeps in, that only Maggie sleeps in, and the whole thing.
Now tell me, what are you disgusted with?
Mendacity. You know what that is? It's lies and liars.
Who's been lying to you, Maggie? Your wife been lying to you?
No, not one lie, not one person, the whole thing.
What's the matter? You got a headache?
No, I'm just trying to...
You're just trying to concentrate, but you can't, because your brain is soaked with liquor. Wet brain! Mendacity.
No, there's nothing
What do you
wrong
know
with
about
Charlie.
mendacity?
No,
I could
no.
write a book on it.
It's your sister calling from Memphis.
To hell with her. Gooper, get out of there. Go on. Close the door after you. Mendacity. Look at all the lies that I got to put up with. Pretenses, hypocrisy. Pretended like I care for Big Mama. I haven't been able to stand that woman in 40 years. Church. It bores me. But I go. And all those swindling lodges and social clubs and money-grabbing auxiliaries that's got me on the #1 sucker list. Boy, I've lived with mendacity. Now, why can't you live with it? You've got to live with it. There's nothing to live with but mendacity. Is there?
Oh, yes, sir. You can live with this.
I love this movie so much from start to finish. And I think, kudos to the script for keeping as much of the messaging and themes as they possibly could under the circumstances. Yes. And still telling a story that feels true to the source material. It's super good. And you do feel, just like you do in the play, like you feel sympathy for Brick because he's struggling with his identity, but you're also like, come on,
Dude,
man.
get it
you
together.
have everything.
Everything's been handed to you.
These are first world problems, Brick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's I just love everybody in this movie so much. I love the servants. They're just going about their business. They're just keeping things, they are really keeping things running while this family is like screaming and shouting and shooting pop guns and breaking antiques and all of that. And meanwhile, like the workers are like actually keeping things going.
Exactly.
Keeping the money being made and all of that. I love the doctor. I love the deacon. I am just, every moment of it is just gorgeous. I love it. Love it. I don't know, but in terms of like book versus movie,
it's hard because
no, it's hard to say.
It really is.
I'm going to tie it. I'm going to say tie.
It's a tie for me too. Also, there have been so many productions of this because I can see why actors want to do this. It's so there's so many themes. It's so over the top. It's a story we all
such great dialogue.
Yes.
That's how fun is that to say that stuff? You know, I'm Maggie at the cat, and I'm alive.
Yeah, I saw the Jessica Lange version with Tommy Lee. Yes, Tommy Lee Jones.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Which was the one? There was one where Sister Woman was played by the one who was the mom on that 70s show. Like, how perfect was she for that role?
She would be perfect for that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the one I saw, and these are all on YouTube. I found them. One was with, like I said, with Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood, and it was
Robert Wagner is. Let's just say, yeah, he really wants to be Paul Newman. And Paul Newman, and this is like an early. Paul Newman was like sort of the unknown element in this for a lot of people. Like Paul Newman was not Paul Newman when this movie comes out. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. His accent, it's a little Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins. Like it is. How are you from the same family as the rest of these people? You don't really. It comes and goes. Like it disappears a lot, especially in words like Maggie that he says a lot. Southern accent is like. And then it's like one removed from that even. It's a very weird. It's weird. It's weird.
Yes.
Natalie Wood is wonderful. And that version, like when I watch that version, I'm like, Maggie, just get out of there. Like you could find another rich guy. Just go.
You're beautiful. Just get out of there.
You're beautiful.
Get away from these people. But that's the point. Like they can't get away easily, and they all do love each other in a weird way. It's family, and it's chosen family versus your family, and I love it. I'll get to pick a tie. I know that's a weenie thing to do, but it's got to be.
It's got, and also I think because it is Burl Ives as the central spoke of the the wheel in both of these versions that we're talking about, the original Broadway and the movie. And that's the one that whenever I see another production, I'm like, how can you not have Burl Ives?
Yeah.
I wish we could have Burl Ives every single production that ever existed of this play, because it's so him. I just love it.
Yeah. Same.
So speaking of classic Broadway shows that have been made into Hollywood movies from this era, next we're going to be talking about the Children's Hour, which is going to be facing a lot of the same issues in terms of adapting from stage to screen. It's a much longer time in this case between the stage version and the screen version. We'll be talking about Lillian Hellman, who we talked about not that long ago, but this is really a good one, and we've never talked about it before. And I forget what year. Is it the 40s that this comes out on stage?
Let me see. I have it right in front of me.
I'm suddenly drawing a blank. I'm just stuck on the movie. I love that movie.
1934.
30s even.
34.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the Children's Hour that we're covering. And then the movie was with Audrey Hepburn. And Shirley MacLaine. And that comes out in the 60s, I believe.
And James Gardner, right? James Gardner.
Oh, is he?
I don't know why. I'm not meaning to put a D in his last name. But every time I can't say his name without a D slipping in there. It's Garner, right?
Yes.
Garner, like Garner
Rockford.
phrase. Yeah, Rockford.
The Rockford Files. Yes. Love the Rockford Files.
Me too.
All right, everyone. So that's going to be the next episode. Please, thank you so much for listening. And sorry about my cat interrupting.
Sorry, we don't know what got cut out.
I don't know. I'll figure it out it'll all work out in the wash, as they say. Once again, please send us your suggestions, and you can find us at all those social media places that I mentioned at the top. And also, once again, our email, bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama. And where can they find you?
You could find me at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. You can see pictures of that cat that interrupted our show today. And at TikTok, I'm at Margot Donahue. All right, everybody, we'll be back soon with a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags LadyPodSquad and Podern Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon, and look for Book versus Movie Podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs. Movie Podcast Group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book versus Movie. Spell all those words out. If you'd like to send us an email, it's bookversusmoviepodcast, spell that all out, @gmail.com. You can follow Margot D at Brooklyn Fit Chick on social media, and Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thanks so much again for checking out our show, and we'll be back.